The view that the sun stands motionless at the center of the universe is foolish, philosophically false, and utterly heretical. The view that the earth is not the center of the universe and even has a daily rotation is philosophically false, and at least an erroneous belief. I was forced to drop heliocentricity for the sake of my career. It was a change of popes resulting in a more liberal Pope Urban VII, who valued scientists and a special fondness for myself. Thus, I was set off to work on my new book, Dialogue Concerning the Two Chief World Systems, which took me 5 years for completion. The book was a dialogue between 3 speakers: Salviati, a Copernican who speaks for myself; Sagredo, an open-minded gentleman who gradually comes to accept Salviati's arguments; and Simplicio, a defender of Ptolemaic worldview. The book was equally presenting both sides, but it still raised controversies with the Church, for I had to go to Rome to get the permission for publication. My book was published, bringing great triumph to myself, but it was short-lived. My enemies were harsh critics of my work, especially the Jesuits, who I ridiculed a couple years back. Even Pope Urban VII found challenging ideas in the book, and his fondness for myself disappeared. Thus, in 1633, the trial of Galileo began. The astronomer, myself, was an old man now. I was almost 70, weakened by sicknesses. I was accused of having violated Cardinal Bellarmine's 1660 injunction against regarding teaching Copernicus' system as a fact. In response, I declared that I had taught it as a hypothesis only, and not as truth. I defended the publication of my dialogue book by insisting that I had only received all the necessary permissions by the Church. I was actually held prisoner for about 3 weeks where I fell ill. I declared myself to be firmly convinced of the truth of Ptolemy's system, meaning the earth stood still. Publicly kneeling before my tribunal, I declared, with a sincere heart and unfeigned face I abjure, curse, and detest the said errors and heresies, and generally every other error and heresy contrary to the Holy Church, and I swear that I will never more in the future say or assert anything which may give rise to a similar suspicion of me. With my final days made being a prisoner, I was set to write a new book, Dialogues Concerning Two New Sciences. It would not be published in Italy, but I was able to negotiate with Holland, where it was first printed in 1638. It was my final masterpiece, after which my vision and hearing failed me. I continued to be popular among many, and was visited by a number of men who learned from me. But on January 8, 1642, I, Galileo Galilei, had died, a month before reaching my 78th birthday. And that's my life story.
Wow, that's very interesting. You must be pretty smart going to all those schools.
I hope I am. My IQ is above 160. So, Renee, I heard you're also really smart and you made great achievements in your life. Tell me about them.
Well, I definitely will. It starts out with...
I was a great philosopher. I was the creator of the term rationalism. Rationalism is the theory that the human mind makes a major contribution to knowledge by means of innate ideas. Innate ideas have always been with the human mind and are uninfluenced by one's experience in life. Sometimes sense experience may be required to trigger these innate ideas, but that's all that sense experience does. I am often quoted with my famous words, "I think, therefore I am." I wrote this famous quote on existence in my book Discourse on Method. In this work, I wrote down how to think properly and that there is a method involved. In order to think properly, one must filter out anything they doubt, leaving only what they are sure of. From there, one must divide the parts of the known object into pieces. After that, solve the simplest problem first. Finally, make a detailed list of everything that was inspected. In my work, Treatise on Man, I argued that everybody has a soul. The body is merely a machine made to respond to what the soul tells it to. Without a soul, the body is just that, a body. There is nothing sacred about an empty, soulless body, because it is nothing. It is not self-conscious. After the soul dies and is released into the afterlife, mankind may do whatever they want to the body. Animals are inferior to humans. They use instinct in place of judgment and have a very predictable set of movements, so therefore they have no soul. In Meditations on First Philosophy, I described why the world can be imperfect despite being created by a perfect God. I concluded this by using true and false. All things good and true come from God, and therefore exist. Anything evil or false is regarded as nothingness, the complete opposite of existing. Therefore, if a certain existence is lacking something, it is lacking what is correct and true. In my book, I wrote, "I understand I can err without God's having given me the ability to do so. Rather, I fall into error because my God-given ability to judge the truth is not infinite. Because humans are the middle beings of God and nothingness, it is not what mankind has that makes them make mistakes, it is what they lack, and what they lack is the full ability to judge the truth, which is reserved for only God." As for math, I created what is known today as analytic geometry. I wrote my findings in a book called La Géométrie. The work focused algebra and geometry into a single subject, making it possible to solve geometry equations using algebra.
You were quite the philosopher back then.
I sure was.
I'm kind of jealous now. You should hear about my achievements.
Really? I hear you were quite the political activist there, going against the Pope and everything.
Oh, I'll tell you about that one. My first discovery was that each swing of a pendulum, regardless of its width, takes an equal amount of time to swing between the extremes of its arc. This discovery allowed professors to create a device called pulsilogia to keep track of a patient's heartbeat. I then even challenged the idea of Aristotle. The heavier the object is, the faster it falls. According to a legend some people made up, I ascended to the top of the famous Leaning Tower of Pisa and dropped balls of different weights and sizes to the ground. Each pair, regardless of composition or weight, hit the ground at the same time. Thus, I had just proven Aristotle wrong. I then found the law of inertia. A body in motion will continue moving indefinitely in one direction and at a constant speed unless interfered with another force. The law of inertia is still valued today because it is taught to all high school students. I also established that musical notes were in fact wavelength of air and laid out the foundation for a comparison between vibrations of stringed instruments and the pitch of note produced. I then, in 1609, invented my own telescope. It had eventually increased its magnification 400 times. My telescope was a window into heaven, with the moon, the numerous stars, and the planets revealed like never before. I discovered that the moon is much like the Earth, with mountains, basins, and peaks, and that Jupiter has 4 moons, and ultimately the planets revolve around the sun. Yeah, that's my life, my achievements.
Wow, that's pretty good. Like, you helped to make all those physics achievements and, like, add so much to it. And you also made it so that we know that the Earth goes around the sun.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing, but you're just as amazing as I am. You helped us calculate geometry using algebra.
That's true.
When I was in school, it was so difficult.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's all the time we have for today, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your classes.
Hope you learned a lot from us. Thank you for listening to us.
See ya.
Bye. Peace. I hope you enjoyed this urgent video from heaven. And now back to your show.